Good morning, Bhargav. It's Thursday, the 6th of April. Here's the heads up brief for today. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 15 issues. North Asia, we covered 5, and for Australasia and the Pacific Islands, we covered 7. In South Asia, we covered 10 issues plus the major issues in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa regions.
Hey Uday, those are a lot of issues. Which are the major ones today?
Great. So in Indonesia, the commander of the military said that there is no deadline to secure the release of the New Zealand pilot held hostage by the West Papua National Liberation Army in Papua. He also expressed concerns that rescue operation would lead to the insurgents killing the captive, which is likely in that scenario.
All right. I can't say I'm surprised, but we'll have to see how this entire fiasco evolves.
In Myanmar, authorities are increasing security for the new year from April 13th to 16th. Resistance groups have called on people to refrain from taking part in military organized events. There could be some attacks and calls to boycott any celebrations.
That this is a horrid situation for civilians, wouldn't you say? They're stuck between the resistance forces and the military. So we'll have to keep a close eye on how things evolve, especially around the New Year time.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out on that part. Moving over to East Timor, the National Police there will conduct nighttime patrols and increase security measures ahead of the upcoming parliamentary elections. There are some concerns about sporadic election-related violence, but no real risks or threats of massive unrest or a change to the security paradigm.
Okay, so the security capability of the forces on ground seems to be strengthening, and that's a positive sign. So we'll watch out for that.
Yes. Lastly, in Australia, 250,000 members of the construction, forestry, mining, and energy unions protested across the country. They're calling for increased wages due to the cost of living crisis. Now, this is as oil prices have recently risen and are expected to continue to rise in the coming months.
All right.
In South Asia, so there's increased security across India for a Hindu religious festival today. There are concerns of unrest in West Bengal and Bihar, especially following the recent violence in the last week.
Yes, the increased tensions, communal tensions in pockets of India is growing, and the concerns are real, especially in states like Bihar, West Bengal, where the right-wing party is trying to get a stranglehold or a foothold. And you don't really see this as a major issue in places like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, or even parts of Karnataka for that matter. And that says a lot. And the security forces hopefully will be capable enough to tackle any major outbreak of violence at the ground level. So otherwise, it doesn't really take a lot for such sentiments to spread across the country.
Right, definitely. I think the politicization of security forces also is an issue here that hinders their responses to some of the violence that happens.
I must agree there. So the central forces as well as state police forces have been accused of favoring a certain side depending on who is in power. So that's a real concern too.
Yes. Also regarding India, Bhargav, the Indian military has deployed deterrence capabilities in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This is after Myanmar has extended an island that is 55 kilometers from India. They brought in an airstrip there. And this is an island where Chinese vessels are frequently observed.
This is really interesting. India has a very hot and cold relationship with Myanmar, despite all the historical links with their independence movement. However, what's really interesting is that India is pushing the envelope, but not really offending the regime in Yangon. Primarily because the situation is quite precarious for India and its neighborhood policy, because half of them are already in the pockets of the Chinese, and half of them are always threatening to be in their pockets, namely Maldives, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. And Myanmar is critical because India shares a really long border with cross-border terror activities, especially by the insurgent forces in Northeast and Myanmar. So it's interesting how the military regime in Yangon will respond to such measures on India's part.
Yeah, definitely. Lastly, Bhargav, in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa regions. So NATO Secretary General warned China of severe consequences if it supplies arms to Russia. This is as China and Russia's ties have been deepening.
I'm not sure what makes him think they're not already supplying arms to Russia. So uh, Chinese and the Russians are quite prudent, and I wouldn't be surprised if Chinese are already supplying some armaments as well as other ancillary products such as the military equipment, non-weaponry kind of military equipment to Russia. So the statement, I'm not too sure will have the desired effect.
Right. And lastly, French unions are calling for even larger protests and disruptive strikes from today over the pension reforms. Talks with the government failed yesterday after just an hour. It remains to be seen how much the unions can muster today. So we'll keep an eye out.
Yes, so the labor unions and the ground level mobilization happens quite quickly in France. Historically speaking, they have been able to disrupt the national economy at a great scale. So the French government better see to it that they can control the situation. Otherwise, it'll be history repeating itself.
Right. Bhargav, that's a brief for today. Anything else from you?
That's it from me, Uday. Thank you.
Thanks.